thank you for tuning in to Fantasy Grounds Overview and Bootcamp with Eric Lamoureux. My name is David Scott. I'll be acting as your host this evening and covering a few minor things we have on our itinerary before opening the floor to a Q&A, which will be available about halfway through, right after Eric is done with his initial tour for us. So we're going to go ahead and kick this right off with a brief introduction. Eric, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about how long you've been using the program and what we can expect to see tonight.
Yeah, well, I've been using Fantasy Grounds for about 5 years now. Started out with 4E, D&D 4E, and then moved over to Savage Worlds. Um, uh, been running games for a bunch of people. I've had steady groups. I've had one-shots, demo games, and I'm not very tech savvy. I just like to GM, and I found some tricks and tools to make it work for me. I'm by no means an expert. I don't know how to use everything about it or how to hack it to pieces and make it do whatever I want, but I found things that work for me, and hopefully it can work for you if you decide to use it or you're already using it and would like to know more. So I'm going to show the player's view of things using Savage Worlds, and then tools for GMs to make their game work, basic functionalities. So let's start with the player's view. Um, Once you log in, which is pretty easy, you'll need your GM's address, IP address, or alias. And once in, it takes you straight to the character selection window. And from then, you pick a blank character sheet, or if the GM had some characters ready for you already, you can pick those up. Let's see. So we're seeing your view right now, or my view.
Yep, I had actually left us on your view there while you were showing the character selection screen.
Sure. So okay, you see some pre-gens there, and then a character that they've created. It's possible to create a new one. Most of the functionalities with Fantasy Grounds are accessible through the right click, which gives you a new dial menu. So let's see with, let's say, this blank character sheet that you can populate the way you want with name, race, the rank, your attributes that you can switch. You have 3 ways of doing it. You can hold down Control on your keyboard, use your mouse wheel to bring the die up or down. You can also grab the dice from the bottom here and drag it onto the stat and change it. Or you can right click, dial menu, assign, and then you choose which one you want. So this is basically macros included in your sheet that automatically know that you're a wild card because of this symbol up there next to your name that's highlighted. If I click on this, right click, toggle is wild card. Now I'm no longer a wild card, so if I roll agility, wait, let's bring it up again. So you only roll the D10, then I can make it a wild card again. Now it rolls the wild die with it. Automatically gives you the highest score. And if you roll the one on your attribute or skill die, it will tell you. If you roll critical failure, it will say that as well. So you can populate your attributes. Vigor, let's say if I put 8, it automatically updates the derived stat as well. From then you can, if you're wearing armor, you can change it. Again, it's control mouse wheel up and down to change a value. After that, you got another tab for the skills that you can enter manually if you want, like this. If I can only spell, or through library, which comes with the rule set. You get the deluxe guide. You can access the skill list, and you can automatically just drag and drop onto your sheet. The advantage of that is it's linked to the book, so if you use that gray circle at the end, it brings up the description of the skill. For a skill like stealth, where you might want to know stealth modifiers, then it will give you access to that table, and you can move these windows wherever you want on the table, so you know that if you're crawling, you'll get the +2. At that point, you can just straight roll, and you see I aced on my D4, and it automatically re-rolled it for me. I scored a 7. Now +2, it's 9. Or I can do this. There's a modifier window here, so I'm using control and mouse wheel up. I gave myself +2, and I can roll it. It gives the +2. Now it's a 5. So that's the kind of automation that it gives you. But as you could see, it took me longer to put that number in there than to just say that add a +2. So depending on your style, you can do it either way.
Okay, now one question that we did obviously receive was in regards to the automation that Fantasy Grounds is kind of known for the other systems, like any of the D20 systems, where you can target that to a specific token on the map and know whether or not that attack roll or damage roll succeeded and to what degree. Is that automation available within the Savage Worlds rule set?
That specific targeting for Savage Worlds is not available for good reason. I think it's a choice they made. Basically, I haven't played 4E before. I know that automation cuts down on a lot of the bookkeeping involved in running that system, which helps the DM a lot. However, with Savage Worlds, I mean, we all know there's barely no bookkeeping. It's you're shaking or you're up, shaking, or off the table. So that kind of automation would slow it down, I think, more than help out. There's a certain level of targeting, but not for automatic rolls. Let's see.
Now, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, is that something that is just not pre-built into the Savage Worlds rule set necessarily, but it is in the Fantasy Grounds framework has the capability of doing that, and even under like the core rule set that they offer to anyone who has Fantasy Grounds actually has that ability, and you could, if you wanted to, go in and add it. It's just not an existing part of the Savage Worlds rules, correct?
Correct. Yeah, for other rule sets and the core RPG, it's possible. Most people use it, and for good reasons. Just that it's not available right now. It's been asked before, and developers decided to work on other features um, that they felt were more important features that people get to vote on. So yeah, it's just not supported, and I just don't believe it's needed.
Okay, and then now one thing I do want to point out to everyone who's kind of watching the broadcast right now, you've got several screens open there where you've got maps and you've been opening the books. I just want to toggle this over to the player view for a moment and let them see. At this point, because you haven't chosen to make any of that available to the player view, none of that is being shown on the screen. So you do definitely have that immediate control of what the GM sees versus what the player sees. How do we go about translating that over so the player does see that if you're sitting in that GM spot?
All right, well, to that I would have to share it with you, which I can do. Again, accessing the dial menu by right click, and then over here I've got an option for sharing, share sheet, and now it will shortly appear. Once the data is transferred over to you, the map will appear. It is possible for me to, prior to the game, to what's called preload the image. I can do that before the game starts, and once players connect to me, they will also receive that data while connecting, which speeds up the transfer during gameplay. So it is shared with you. You can see it. Now another thing I could do prior to it is um, to mask it. Let's see if I can find it. Selection mode. Those are for tokens.
Now, you're saying mask that. That's the Fantasy Grounds version of Fog of War, basically, so that you can determine exactly what part of the map the player can see at any given time, even after you've shared that map, correct?
Right. Like, see right now I change it to mask it, and you can no longer see the map. After that, I can decide if I want it, if I only want certain parts of it to show to you. I've got a bunch of layers right now, and that's all right. Here we go. So now I'm showing just this part over here. I can draw it like that. I can also draw it just like this part, and I can change it, can mask it again. So, but yeah, it is their version of Fog of War. It cannot be attached to a certain token, so that if a party is exploring a dungeon, for instance, and they're all in their own direction, I can't really decide which player sees what. They just see whatever I decide to let them see. It's not something that's been built into Fantasy Grounds yet. So it's just a generic Fog of War. It can turn on or off. So that's pretty much it for the maps.
Okay.
With the grids, you can choose X grids or square grids. You can do fine tuning to them, um, larger, smaller, layers too, um, which you can use to put tokens on, and not being the players won't be able to touch those tokens, move them, but still be able to move their token. I also use some tokens which are like the dungeon tile maps that were ripped, and I just use that to build a map real quick sometimes, so I can do that as well.
Okay, now one tool, and I'm looking here at the player layer that I'm noticing doesn't exist here that I've seen in a lot of other virtual tabletops. Is there some manner where the player can measure out distances so that they know how far they can move their token? I'm assuming that it's not necessarily an automated thing where Fantasy Grounds stops them from moving that token, is it?
Well, it can be turned on or off. I can make it that every move your token makes has to be approved by me, or I can make it so that you can freely move your token around and draw on the map. I can lock the drawing on the map for you also, for some pesky players that like to doodle on your map while you're trying to run a game. You can turn that off too if you'd like, or let them draw whatever they want on their arrows. One thing that they built in, let's see, pointers. Um, they pre-built the cone, the small burst, the medium burst, and the large burst into the rule set, so that once you've got your grid set out, it will know, let's see, a large burst. That's an automatic large burst right there, and then I can move it around. I can also, for distance, calculating distance, if I go from one square here and go to that square, shows 7, so 7 square distance, 7 inches in Savage World. So if you want to know if you're uh, long distance or short distance, and see you've got the cone, and then you can move the cone in any direction you want.
And then I'm noticing those are color coded based on the person who dropped that on the map, so that you can keep track as the GM which of your players is actually trying to indicate something. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can decide, choose your color for your dice, and that'll be the same color that's used when you draw those pointers on the map. So yes, like if I know you're using that sort of gray right now or black or whatever, I would know it's you. So uh, I ask players to pick different colors. Black seems to be really popular, but when you've got 4 of them with black, you can't really tell the difference. So yeah, you choose your dice color, and that will translate to what your pointers look like.
Okay, and while we're on that subject, could you show us how you would go about doing things like changing dice colors or customizing things like that?
Sure, let me shut that down here, make some room. Alright, this icon here, colors. So this is a simple RGB color for you dice. Right now mine are red, but I can add blue to them, and then they get real blue, darker, or lighter over here, all the way to white. Can add some red, make them pink a little bit. and then I can switch if I want the numbers to be black or white. So it's just basic colors. You can't have metal dice, dwarven dice, or uh, any marble, whatever. You can't have all these. It's just that, but it works. It's pretty easy to use. You just make your own color.
So you can select any color you want. You don't have to go in and buy different types of dice or anything like that. Along with this, that's all basic functionality that comes with it. Whereas we're all
Right.
used to paying $10 every time we go to the game store to buy another set of dice. So I guess that's at least
Right.
a nice feature we don't have to continually drop money on.
Yeah. No, you don't have to do that. Although I'd pay for some marble dice, I'd pay, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe $10 to have marble dice. That'd be sweet. But no, these are totally free. You don't pay for that.
Okay, and then I guess my next question is going to be this. I know we talked a bit about the ability to drag those things out from the book directly into the record sheet during the character creation process. Other than obviously when you purchase the book and having it come pre-printed, how do you get those rules in the book where you can reference them like that? Can you do like homebrew rules? If I have maybe I've got an edge that I really want the characters to have that's not in the Savage Worlds core rules, can I add those things and have them available the same way, or is that something that I have to do kind of the way I do it in my home game, where I know it and they know it, but we don't have a reference to it on the fantasy grounds?
Yeah. There are two ways to do it. Really, it depends. If you're running a one shot, then you can do it straight on your character sheet, like custom edge. Let's add this edge here. Give me a name for an edge. Custom.
Let's call this one Big Damn Heroes.
Alright. Alright. And then if you notice next to it, there's a little icon. It's an open book. I click on this. What is that, a combat edge?
Yes, that would be a combat edge where the player character heals one wound at the end of any combat.
Okay. Any requirements for that?
Let's say they have to be a veteran and probably have
Okay.
to have a D8 in vigor, I would think.
Alright. And then you said it gives what, a +2?
No, what that does is it just allows the player character to immediately heal one wound at the conclusion of combat. So if they're incapacitated, they'd wake up with 3 wounds, or if they're wounded in any way, they would just move up 1 wound on the wound track.
Okay. Can you see it? So there's your edge that you created. It's on your sheet, and whenever you click on it, it's available. All reference for the DM and yourself to see. So for a one shot, that works fine because you don't have to pick new edges once you advance. This will only be for this game. But if you're gonna run a campaign and you got a whole bunch of custom edges that you've made, and you want that available for your players to look at once they advance, and there's a tool available for free, unofficial tool available for free on the forums. It's called the library extension, and it allows you to create your own custom books, and I'll show you how that works. So in the library window, again, I right click and I can do create book. Then let's call it homebrew campaign. And then from that window, select it. Come on now. Category. let's put it setting. Alright, create page. Now I can create gear, text, list. I'll create a list. Edges. I'll call this new edges. In that window, again, right click, manage. I create an entry. And let's see. It was called Big Damn Heroes. Edge combat requirements. That was veteran and vigor D8. I can also grab this here and type it in there. Once it's in there, now let's delete this one. Now I can drag this edge here, and now you got an edge again that will reference to what I just created. So I can create as many as I want.
So this doesn't require any programming knowledge on the part of the user to do. It could actually be done very quickly with just some pretty simple copy and paste then. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, you just type and copy and paste. If you have your own Word document that you worked on, or you made it into a PDF file, even web content that you might find, you can do it that way. And yeah, it's just, you just click and enter stuff. There's no coding or programming needed to do that. Just with the use of that tool, I can create my own content, powers, skills, NPCs, you name it.
Okay, now let's say that in the process of creating your own setting and putting this custom information in there, let's say I was putting in a edge, and we're just going to, for the sake of expedience, we're going to call it alertness, and this gives you a +2 to your notice checks. I know that's obviously one that comes right out of the deluxe book, but is that something that, as a GM, you can create one that gives bonuses to skills that Fantasy Grounds recognizes? Or when you do that, is that something you're going to manually have to go in and notate on the record sheet someplace else because they took that edge?
You'll still have to add it manually. Like what I would do for notice, I can right-click bonuses, and then I can add alertness, then give it a +2, and it shows up here on your sheet. If you roll it, it will say, it will include the +2 alertness. So if it was something not related to a particular sense you were using, you could just disregard that part. You can also, I think you can turn it on or off as well. Their bonuses. No, that's for parry. You can do that for parry if you were using a shield, or you had a particular edge. You could toggle it on or off. So no, it won't recognize that. It will kind of recognize charisma for certain. Like if I pick this here and I start typing charisma, now it automatically put the +2 because it recognized the charisma over here. And then if I change it.
So you can certainly have the record sheet reference itself, but things like dragging an edge from the book doesn't necessarily apply those bonuses automatically. You are still going to need to go in and put the bonus into the record sheet manually.
Yeah, you still have to, because, well, they explain it to me too that Savage Worlds is very fluid, and you might not want to use that bonus for a certain situation, and that's just something that the program, I mean, it can't recognize the situation going on, so no, it's not included, and I haven't felt it's an obstacle of any kind.
Okay. And then the next question I had in regards, again, this is all pretty much pertaining to the custom content, because that's what I got a lot of questions on before we started this. In regards to that, if I've got a power or a weapon that has multiple functions, maybe it does 2d6 on a regular shot, or 3d6 on a more powerful, or it has multi-shot capability, can you put all of that in as one entry, or do I need multiple entries for that weapon or power?
Alright, let me demonstrate that. We'll give you a power. Let's go to the power list. We'll use bolt. Alright, so here I have bolt. If I right click on the entry, I can type create power bonuses. Fumble range, you could change a fumble range. I guess it's arcane. Usually a sub attack there going on. I don't know why I can't see it right now, but yeah, you can do sub attacks. Let's try it with the weapons instead. Create attack, mark as equipment. Yeah, I have it modded right now. I might not have the right mod on, but you can create the sub attack that will appear slightly indented underneath this one. So you could have for shotgun, for instance, you could create one for the 1d6, one for the 2d6, and one for the 3, and then it will still use the same entry here, the same skill linked to shooting, and then you just select the damage that you want with it, whether it's 2 or 3, and these will all appear here.
Okay, and I just want to cover, when you're referencing something from the record sheet, say we're trying to make a fighting roll or a damage roll, do you have to pick it up and drag it to that chat pane each time? Is that the only way to actually cause that roll to go off?
You can double click on a skill, or in this case, let's say for bolt, it would use spellcasting. So I put spellcasting. So I can roll it from here by double clicking. Ooh, nice roll. Or I can just drag it like that and more like organically actually rolling it on the table. Or I can use this one here, which will alert the GM that you're actually using the power bolt, and it detected the spellcasting skill, so it rolled the appropriate die type with it. But if I take the spellcasting skill off my list and roll it again, then it reads it as unskilled with the -2 automatically in it. So yeah, you can double click, click and drag, and if you want to do it on the fly, you can just use the dice down there, but they won't ace. The acing part of it is part of the macro, so it has to be from the character sheet. But I can also drag a skill from my sheet and drop it into the hotkey bar down here for ease of reference. If sometimes your screen gets cluttered with a bunch of stuff, so you might want to just leave your sheet down and use this. So I can click on this down here and it will roll that. And then there's also the mini sheet over here, which you can customize. You can see the attributes here. If I want a skill to appear, there are like little stars in the corner there. They're really small, so some of you might not be able to see it, but if I click on it, then fighting is now available over here. I can do it with my attacks as well. So now bolt is here, and then I can dock it, and I've got a mini sheet that takes less space, and you can still access everything you have.
And I do want to just back up here for one moment. You had drug the skill down and put it into the hotbar, and one thing I wanted to point out is that that does not pop into the player's hotbar. So, as the GM, you could actually put the fighting for all of the NPCs in a given encounter into their own hotbar location, and it'll actually roll the individual NPC. Correct?
Yeah, you can do that. I ran a zombie game before where all of them were using wild attacks every time. So I've got a bunch of modifiers here that I put in. I got wild attack, so I put that over here. So every time before they attacked, I could just click on this. Now if you see a +2 appeared over here, then I roll fighting. It tells me fighting with a wild attack +2. So total of 13. And then I can also have effects, because I need to remind myself that that guy's going to have a -2 to its parry until its next attack. So I can use effects over here and write wild attack, and that will be duration, just duration of 1. And then I can apply that effect using the combat tracker that I would need to populate first, and I can show that next if you'd like, because that's probably my favorite tool to use, one that cuts down on a lot of bookkeeping.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of the big tool right now. We've covered a lot of the automation so far. I think Combat Tracker really covers the meat of what a virtual tabletop does for us as gamers, because it gives us that ability to have those dice roll for us when we can't do it from maybe thousands of miles apart. So, yeah, that definitely would be the next thing I would want to take a look at.
All right, let's see. So we'll need your character sheet. It would help with a token, so I'll pick one for you here. I've got a lot of portraits in there, so it takes a bit to load, but it will appear shortly. Yeah, using the combat tracker is the first step before you lay stuff down on the map, because once they're linked with the combat tracker, then it's easier to tell what's going on the map, as opposed to just dropping tokens, which works too, but it's
And then
better to
with the
link it that
combat
way.
tracker, you can do that the same way that we were putting the skills to the record sheet. You could actually go into like the bestiary and grab things out of the predefined bestiary and just drag them right to the combat tracker. Correct?
Yeah, let's see. We'll use an orc over here. Now, if it's a group of orcs, I can add more to that group, and they'll all use the same card. What I do, I hold down Alt, and then that group icon here, and I click, and then I can add. Let's make it a group of 6 of them, and they all have their token on it associated. And then, so we need the map. Here are the tokens. So I've got a bunch of them for Deadlands, and those tokens they're just PNG files. So there's nothing really fancy about it. You just make your own file, drop it in the folder, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I know you and I were discussing earlier that we both had used the Map Tools token creator for a good long time, and I personally still use it. I think it's one of the best tools I've got for making tokens because I can set that to a certain size and then I can drop my image in there. But it certainly looks like this supports not just the POG style tokens, but even like the top down and other types of images. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's any type of image you choose. So let's give you the dude over here. I like the dude. So now I can just drag you and put you in the tracker. You're over here. We'll put it around 0. Map. Let's use the Roman fort over here. Share it with you. Let's remove a bunch of stuff on here. I use dual monitor because, especially for the GM, your screen gets the real estate is can
Man,
get
you don't have to
crazy.
explain it to
But
me.
I ran it
I have an
without
extra
dual
TV
monitor
to
for
do
years.
tabletop, so.
We've got you and the orcs. I've set up the grid, which is the first step. There's a grid on there, so I can drop you like over here. Then I can make you smaller a little bit, or I can make you larger. But there's an option to set it so that even because if you create your own tokens, some of them will be larger, some of them will be smaller, but there's an option to make it that it locks onto it, lock token scale, and now even if you zoom in or out, the token stays the same size, and it'll automatically size it to the grid size you've put on there. So now I can lay down orcs, and now if it was an ambush, like on my screen, you can see the tokens, but on yours you can't yet because they're invisible. Then I can change that, I can turn it on. Now they're visible. By the time they load up, there we go. And then I can hide them back again. I can also change their name. I can make them over here so that this one, there's an option to hide the name. So like if you know the name of the NPC but you don't want players to know, now let's share the tracker with you. It should appear for you, mini tracker. There we go. So like right now you only see yourself on the tracker. Now let's put the orcs on there. There they are. So I could change it to unidentified. And then it says unknown, so you know there's something there, but you don't know what it is. Well, I can turn it back on visible.
And it looks like this also, for the GM view, shows the um, the parry, the toughness, and things of that nature. But on the player view, it only shows that information if you share it with the player. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have the option of uh, turning it off with the N right here. It should be. See, now you no longer get the parry and toughness. So players don't know what they have to score to hit, but I can see yours. And I can also, on your portrait, a tool I like, let's see on their preferences. Let's see, show bennies on portrait. So if I give you 3 bennies, in the top corner over here on your portrait, you can see your stack of bennies. You've got 3. I can also make it that I can see your derived stats right on your sheet. So I can see on your portrait here, parry 2, toughness 7. So I don't have to bring up your sheet to know what your parry and toughness are. I can just at a glance, I know what it is. If you were a magic user and you had PowerPoints, I could do the same with PowerPoints. I can do with conditions. Let's say you're shaking all of a sudden. Little icon up there, and then I know you're shaking. That reminds me that on your next turn, I'm going to ask you for your spirit roll, or ask you if you want to spend a Benny. You can also have wounds, which appear like bullet wounds on your portrait. I know at a glance you're badly wounded right now with 3 wounds, and you'll be able, when you roll, it will automatically give you a penalty of 3 when you roll. So anyway, so now I know this. Tokens are all there. Now we can start first round. We can click on this for next round. Round number 1, it automatically dealt the cards. If you add level-headed or quick, the system would know about it and automatically deal you a second card or redeal if it's too low. And in this case, you can see a King of Hearts and 8 of Diamonds. So that deals the card. I can also, if you need a card dealt to you for a table, I can just right-click on your portrait and deal you a card, and the card will appear right there on the table.
And that's to support in case I've got a homebrew setting rule or something that gives me additional draws that aren't part of that core, where it wouldn't know to automatically give me those additional cards. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, or it could be to roll on a certain table at that point and whatnot. I could also award a Benny, give you a Benny, or the way I like to do it, I just drag it and give it to you like that. It feels like I'm tossing it over to you. And then if you're misbehaving, I can also kick you. Kick you out. Ring
Well, I
bell.
certainly hope you're not going to do that tonight.
Nah. You could. Ring bell, I mean, sometimes players just get distracted on Facebook or whatnot, and it's their turn, or you need their attention and they're not responding. I can do that, and it'll ring the bell on your side and let you know that I need your attention right now. The same time from your portrait, if you right-click on it and you have to step back for a couple minutes for bathroom break or whatever, you can let me know you're away by selecting the away icon, and automatically no. Release toggle AFK, and icon appears. And then when you're back, you do it again, and it tells me that you're back. So let's see. All right. So we got the map now. We've got 6 orcs, and it can be confusing. Let's say you've got a ranged weapon, and I need to know which one of these guys you're targeting. It's possible to give them numbers when they're dealt. There's an option for that, but you can also. All right, so you got your token. You click once on it, highlight it, and you hold down Control, and then you tell me which one you're targeting. So I will draw an arrow to the one you're targeting, and also if you look at my side of things on the tracker, it highlights it in blue, so I know that that's the one you're trying to take down. And if you take it down, then I can just right click on it and delete it, confirm, and he's gone. So also if he happens to be shaken, one of them, alright, that's an option I have to put on. Okay, show combat effects and combat situation. So there we go. It appears on the map as if you'd use a token. So I know that these two are shaken also, and gives you a cue too, visual cue, if you want to plan your next move. The player will know that all these are okay right now. They're not going to be a big threat, or you can decide that you just want to take him down, and those are shaken. They'll be easier to take down. So then you would perform your action. The targeting you were talking about earlier would mean grabbing from your character sheet one of your attacks, fighting, and actually dropping the dice onto the token, but that's not possible. So what you do, you just roll it, and then I know from my tracker what their stat is. I know they've got 5 parry, 8 toughness, so if you score higher than any of those, you've succeeded, and it's actually doesn't take any longer really. You just know it. It's available on here. I can turn it on. Let's see, like this. So now all combatants, all their derived stats are available right here at a glance. I can see. I could turn it off or just turn it on for certain. I can turn on these attacks so their traits are visible here, so I don't have to turn on their NPC sheet. I can roll it straight from here. As you can see, also they're not a wild card, so they just get their straight D6. Same with damage. Now that's a nasty one. 24. I could let you know, remind you that it's damage to you by doing this, and then it shows you a portrait that you suffered short sword damage, 24, and then you got to count the raises for wounds. But the next update coming soon, they're including a race calculator. Some was brought up about, actually I think it's Christian's tool, the race calculator, and it was brought up that it would be a neat tool to have at this table instead of counting out loud and counting on your fingers how many raises you get. That you'll just use that tool and know instantly how many raises you've scored. So then you go down the list, and if I bring up the map again, and then it highlights all of them as I go down the list, so I know exactly which one is being used. And then we go to round 2, and they got a better card, and they'll be going first. didn't I say something about an effect? Yeah, let's see. Let's show the effect. The wild attack. Let's say one of them did do a wild attack. So I'll drag this over here, drop it. Now wild attack, and a visual cue appears on the map icon saying that it's a wild attack. He just did a wild attack, so until his next action, it'll be easier to hit. Not all.
Even viewable to the players. Is that something that, again, as the GM, you have control of, where you can make those little notations on the map for yourself that the players don't see? Or once you've toggled where they can see all the effects, do they see all of those effects?
They see all of them. Let's see the options. I can do a GM only. If I look at my options over here, it can be on or GM, on, off, or GM only.
Okay, so certainly it is something to keep in mind when using this. If there's something you don't want the players to see that is going to be an effect, you want to make sure you don't turn those effects on for players at all then. And that's just something for especially the new users to keep in mind. I did just notice that the QA app did fail to load when I set this up, and I do apologize to everybody who's watching. If you guys want to just send those messages directly to me, or list them in the comments for the video, I will make sure to get those asked of Eric while we're going on here today.
Yeah, I mean that'd be a good time to go about it now, since it's almost been it's been an hour, so it's ready to take questions, specific questions. I mean, if there's anything particular you'd like me to focus on, here's your chance.
We say that, and I'm sure my Google is getting ready to just absolutely blow up now.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't even know how many people are watching right now. So.
It looks like we are down to 8 from the 11 we hit just a little bit ago. But I also had a few people who were supposed to be sending me some questions this evening that weren't going to be able to make the broadcast as well. So I'm just waiting to see if I get any of those as well.
All right. Well, let me take this opportunity to give a shout out to FGCon. FGCon's going to run October 17th to 19th. It's an online convention, RPG convention using Fantasy Grounds, and for the duration of that convention, anybody's welcome to join for free. It's fg-con.com, and if you sign up on there, we have over 50 games right now. About a dozen of them right now are Savage Worlds game, but there's some Pathfinder, BRP, even some Swedish games, some D&D 5e, bunch of games on there. And then to the Extraordinary Gamers, group of gamers I belong to, we run several games a week, most of them being open tables. So if you're looking for a group to play with online, come check us out, extraordinarygamers.com. Most of our GMs are ultimate GMs with the ultimate license, so it's free to play. So we have good games, Savage Firefly, some BRP, D&D 5e. We've got BRP, So
Okay.
plenty of games to choose from.
While you're mentioning that, I did want to just kind of quickly ask you to go over for us the for those who aren't aware of the different like pricing tiers, I guess is the best way to look at it, is that there is that player only light version, which allows a player to play in a game, but they can't host their own campaigns as a GM. There's the GM full license, which lets you host, but all of your players have to have their own license as well. And then there's the GM Ultimate license, which you can get either the one time fee or the subscription, and that lets you have anybody can play in your games for free. You're the only one that's ending up paying for that. Is that correct?
Right. So you've got the free demo license. With that, you can try it out with a friend. You can connect with one other friend and run a game and see how you like it. But you can't save any progress. So after the game, that's it. I mean, you can't. It'd be hard to run a campaign like that, but you can check it out that way. Then you got the light license, which is around $25. That one lets you join any game. And then you got the full one that lets you host games, um, but your players will need a light license. I believe there are several options, several bundles on the website that gives you a discount if you buy, let's say, one full license and 4 light licenses. It'll be cheaper. But if you plan to alternate GMs, that might not be your best option. And then the ultimate, which means you can join any game and you can host a game, and anybody can join your game whether they have a license or not. And then that is the pricey one, 150. If you pay through PayPal and you live in the U.S., you can make payments 6 months, and then you have the option of having a monthly subscription for $10 a month. But it's either one. You can't pay for 16 months, 15, 16 months, and have your license paid off that way. So it's a good option if you want to check it out for just a month and see if you like it.
Okay, and we do actually have our first question here is from Richard Ashley, and he's
Mhm.
asking that since you've been using the program for some time, what mods would you suggest, especially for maybe a new user or a Savage Worlds user, but just mods in general that you suggest for helping run a Fantasy Grounds campaign?
By mods, he means a module, a
I,
book already included.
Not sure if he was talking about specifically the modules that you can purchase through the store or the extensions. He just put in mods, so
Okay.
I know that unfortunately it's that internet slang thing that we run
Mhm.
into. Is he talking about a module or an extension? And he didn't clarify just yet. But are there specifics for either one that you would suggest?
Well, for extensions, as I mentioned, the Savage Worlds Enhance extensions that are unofficial extensions, they're available for free on the forums. Um, Pretty much everybody I know that runs Savage Worlds, it's become, I mean, I wouldn't run it without them now. It just adds all these features that is shown, like on the portrait, to see, be able to tell at a glance, parry and toughness, uh, uh, token sizing on the map, the ability to enter your own custom stuff right on the character sheet, like this. Without those extensions, you can't do that. Um, as for the modules, I mean, it's depends what you want to run. If you want to run fantasy, get the fantasy companion. Um, There's the adventure deck that's available also that you can buy. That's a neat tool to have, so that I can deal cards from that deck that can be used. Let's see, I got the adventure card. So get your character sheet, giving you a card. Now you can read it, and you can play it by just dragging it onto the chat window, and it will tell everybody that you're using that card. That's a nice tool to have. So I'm not sure if that answers this question, but if not, maybe a
He
next
did
one.
clarify he was looking for the modifiers to the program itself, so things like the Savage Worlds extensions, the unofficial tools, and you said those are available right through the Fantasy Grounds forums. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in the sticky on the forums. They're hard to miss. Right up there, and you just download it and put them in your extension folder, and you'll have access to them. Turn it on or off when you launch your table, make them available or not.
Okay, now you showed here the adventure cards. Now, it, as several people in the Savage Worlds community know, I'm in the process of building my own chase rules deck that actually has a series of cards. Is that something that I can input into this as well? Can I create my own assets such as cards and things like that as well? Or is it specifically going to be just rule blurbs that are going to be predominantly text?
It's mainly text. For the next update, one of the developers is looking into adding more automation to these cards, like if you are dealt the this card rules and you play it, it automatically gives you 2 cards, that type of thing. What's neat about this module is when you purchase it, it comes with a manual, a PDF file that walks you through how you can put your own cards into the deck. Because if I go in preferences over here for the adventure deck, now I can choose to include the sci-fi themed cards or not, include, exclude for every card. So that by creating your own cards, they would show up over here, and then you could choose to include or exclude your own custom deck. So
Okay.
if you have your own set, I could exclude the basic set and just use my custom one, and it will draw from these cards instead.
Okay, and then the next question I would want to cover is, I know you and I had discussed this prior to the broadcast, is that you actually have been working with some people in the Savage Worlds community there on Fantasy Grounds to create custom record sheets and some things that did require kind of a higher level programming knowledge. Is that something that you could cover just kind of at a high level for us, and where people could look for some of those more custom details as well?
Yeah, most of these extensions, it's basically you can get away with just knowing a little bit of XML. You can look under the hood, these extensions, duplicate them, and then make your own based off of that with templates. Well, use them as templates. The more automated part of the software is dealt with another language, Lua, I don't know, but that's what it uses. Also, if you go on the forums and ask questions, there are many knowledgeable people that will either point you in the right direction for the information you need. There's lots of documentation, and they'll try to help you out best they can. But yeah, it does require you to either learn those languages and how it works, or to already know them. I've managed to understand the basic functionality of an extension for what we call this new skin. If I wanted to change the background or these icons on the side here, the look of these windows, even the character sheet, and it isn't that hard. It's basically a bunch of PNG files, and unless you change the framing, and that requires a higher level of expertise, all you got to do is just change those PNG files so that whatever you created with your image editor will appear on there, and it's as simple as that.
Okay, and just as an aside with that particular issue, what you're talking about is you changing obviously the look and feel of that. If you as the GM make that change, is that something your players are going to see as well when they load in, or is that something that you're going to have to actually email over to them and they're going to have to apply on their own in order to see?
No, they'll see it. It'll automatically load up as part of the rule set. Basically, well, from what I understand, what an extension is just a layer on top of the basic rule set that tells the software, well, instead of this, use this. So, I mean, I could do it real quick here. I got one. Well, they'll bump you off, but let's see. I return the launcher. Then I've got some extensions already in there. Let's pick a new one coming soon. The ETU one. So all I did was click on it. Now it's highlighted again. And then if you connect to me after that, you'll part of the extension, additional data pretty much, and you'll see exactly what I see. One thing I wanted to point out, because those are questions that new users ask a lot. If you wanted to, let's say you want to join my table and it's Savage Worlds and I've got all these modules and the rule set and whatnot, you don't need to purchase that material yourself. All of that, if I have it on my table, you'll have access to it once you connect to me. So it's not like video games where you need to have the same DLC as everybody else. You don't need that stuff. All you need is the program and log in. If your GM, of course, doesn't have an Ultimate license, then you'll need your own player license. But other than that, you don't. So see now, that's customization, a new background. If you look at the character sheets, now it's got a new look. I forgot to toggle on another extender, but usually instead of race it would show major, and then you got your own arcane skills. So this the part where it's just changing the look of it is pretty easy. I can do that, but the actual changing of the character sheet, that requires higher level. It's not impossible to do, but especially if you know XML, you can hack away at this, change the frame sizes, add new derived stats. See, like here, it's got academics now. So that's the sort of thing you can do. Um, requires time too, so if you got a lot of time and a lot of knowledge, you can be a real wizard with that thing. You can create some amazing stuff. But if you don't, like me, you can still uh, create some great content and have fun with it.
And now, as I understand it, with things like the Deadlands Noir setting, the Deadlands setting, the Dungeons and Dragons Fourth Edition setting, or the Pathfinder setting, a lot of these things also come pre-built in with those rule settings. So if you're playing Savage Worlds, it's going to have a certain look and feel that the Fantasy Grounds folks actually designed for Savage Worlds versus Deadlands Noir or Fourth Edition. Is that correct?
Right. Um, a setting like Deadlands, I mean, you need a couple different things. I mean, you need the fate pot. So someone had to create a little app within um, the rule set to allow you to have players actually, draw a fate chip from the fate pot, and also you need a card dealing table, and that was created too. So I know Christian was with his Savage Eberron uses a variation of the fate pot. He uses shards instead. So it would be, I haven't tried it, but I would imagine it'd be kind of easy to look under the hood of this and change the name of White Chip for Kyber Shard, and change the PNG file from the look of a white chip to Kyber Shard, and then all of a sudden you've got your own way of dealing um, your shards, because otherwise you're left with using the basic Benny dealing functionality that comes with the Savage Worlds rule set, which is as a GM I can give myself bennies, one per player, and then I can later play these saying GM is using a benny. I can, of course, award those bennies to players, and the players in turn can just drag from their sheet, and it tells me that you are uh, using a benny. And when it runs out, you can't give yourself more bennies, so you can't cheat. Unless I give you one, you don't have it.
Okay, and then the one last question I wanted to cover that had been put in early, and I'm still waiting to see if we have any additional questions at this point, is going to be prep time. Different from maybe prepping for the tabletop, where obviously you've got to go through and decide what NPCs you're using or things of that nature. What we all go through as a GM. What prep is specific to Fantasy Grounds, and about how much time can a new GM expect that he needs to set aside specifically for the Fantasy Grounds portion of that prep?
Well, you're going to need to prep, of course. I mean, if you play face to face, you've got your books with you, and that's part of your prep. Now, on Fantasy Grounds, I mean, you can create stuff on the fly. I mean, I could create an NPC right now, but I'd still have to populate all that. Now, if you're in the middle of combat, and that will slow things down, so you'd want to have that prepared before the game. Now, if you have modules already loaded, like in here, I've got this year, so I can just use these instead. I can reskin them, name them something else. An ogre could be a demon if I wanted to. So, but the Savage Worlds rule set that you'd have to purchase. This comes built in, uh, and now you've got several companions and whatnot with their own critters in there that you can use, or like I've shown before, you can create your own over here and have them ready. You can create them here, or you can, of course, create them over here. These I call kind of like my cue cards, so it's easier to reference stuff over here and use it. So yeah, you would need time to prep. Now it depends if you're preparing for a one shot. Um, you might need a couple maps, a couple NPCs. If you want to write down some notes, you can write it over here in the story. Cue cards with links to your critters. So I could write critter over here and drag this over here. So that'd be my cue card. Now I could use only that master cue card over here and go down the events for this game, and then bring it back up. I can use it. If you're more of a on-the-fly GM, then you'll need more prep, because you'll need to be ready for any eventuality, or have or that your players are understanding of saying, hey, listen, just give me 5-10 minutes. I'm gonna prepare this, and then we can continue. So it depends on your style. I like to have things a bit more fast-paced. I like to be ready and organized, so the flow of the game is faster. So it all depends on your style. For a campaign, then you're going to spend time preparing maybe a session or two in advance. Create the main NPCs, villains, and whatnot. So usually for one shot, I can spend maybe an hour prepping that stuff. What takes me the longest usually are the pre-gens. If I have to build pre-gens, so that can take a bit longer. But then again, you can also export your pre-gen, like I did over here, that you can see them, and I can take that module into any other table, and they're ready to load. So you can also make your own pre-made that you can use on the fly for anything.
So it doesn't sound like there's a lot that is Fantasy Grounds specific. It's more the normal prep that a GM is going to have to go through, and then the stuff that a virtual tabletop GM is going to have to do, such as having the images loaded. Now, I know you and I had discussed previously that if you have a lot of things in your prep work that you've been doing, though, as far as images, that it is typically a good idea to have your players kind of log in a bit early to make sure that they get that downloaded from you, because that's dependent specifically on the GM's upload speed. Is that correct?
Yeah, and well, I have this problem of living in an area where DSL is pretty much a max I can get. So my upload speed is limited. For the initial game, like I started a campaign, and I told the players my server will be up for the next 24 hours. That was prior to the start of the game. Please, when you get a chance, just log in there, download all the data for me, and then you can just log out and we'll be fine. So it's just the initial first session that usually will take the longest for your players to get information from you, especially if you got 5 or 6 of them at the same time. But I've played with other people that use cable, and it's not an issue for them. So everything runs real smooth. For me, I just have to be mindful of that upload speed. So I have to optimize my images that I share. I try to keep them around 100 kb instead of 1 megabyte that, divided by 6 players that want to see it at the same time. It might take a couple minutes. Now, if you're starting a combat, that will be a mood killer right there. But you can also preload them so that if you know for sure for that session they'll use that map, then you preload it, and when they log on to you, they'll download that data at the same time. One thing to point out too is that all that information is encrypted, so that even after the game or before the game, your players can't sneak in there and go look at the maps you have prepared and that kind of stuff. They can't see it, and they can't take any of the modules they had access to while on your table. If they can look at the player's guide while at my table, once they leave, they can't look at it anymore. So as far as copyright and whatnot, that can't be violated. It's all encrypted.
Okay, and that did remind me we did actually skip something, and I do apologize. Could you go ahead and show us how it is that you, as the GM, control which books your players can see in that view as well? Because I know you own quite a few more modules than what we would see here currently in the player view right now.
Yeah.
And how is it that you, as the GM, can control kind of what's available at any given time?
All right. So let's see. I have this, the adventure deck that I showed, and then at the bottom, 3 icons. One that says block from player, so let's go instead to DLR, so Deadlands Reloaded, Marshall's Handbook. Now I don't want players to have access to it for some reason. Let's pretend. I don't see it as a problem, but just by default, everybody seems to do that. So by putting this tag on it, even if I turn it on over here, I have access to it. But if David goes into library right now and looks, he won't be able to see it. Now, if he were a DM also and he had the book himself and was trying to get access to it, you would get a prompt saying you do not have access to that book. Then you have the allow for player, so the player guide. If I know, let's say all my players have that book and they'll want to open it when they get to the table, then I put this one on there. Once they do this, drag open to get the book, it will appear to them. Now, if they don't have that book, remember I said I don't need to ask you to buy anything. You don't even need the PDF version of anything. Now I will use the force load for players option. So I'll put that on there. So that means that when you connect to me, it will transfer it over to you. And once you're at the table, sometimes you have to wait a couple minutes while it finishes downloading. But at that point, you'll have access to the page through it. Any references, new edges that are in there, you can look at them or put them on your character sheet. Same with gear and whatnot. So that's basically it.
Okay, and it does look like that was the last of our questions at this point, Eric. I do definitely want to say thank you so much for your time and going over this with me over the last couple of days as we prepared to do this, and then obviously the time this evening to discuss that with everybody who tuned in and who's going to be able to see this through the YouTube video. I will make sure to get a link up for that as quickly as I can. I do want to do a little bit of editing. I know my son was shouting in the background a couple of times, and I want to make sure we can clean that up as much as I can. Um, at this point, I just want to give you one more opportunity. I know you've got the con coming up, and one of the big things with the con as well was that that's going to be an ultimate license kind of free weekend. Everybody can kind of play with that has that license, so you don't have to worry about necessarily who has a license and who doesn't during that con. Is that correct?
Right, for the duration of the con, SmiteWorks upgrades every full license users to the ultimate license, so it's absolutely free for anybody. And then if you know hardcore gamer like me or anybody in the extraordinary gamers, most of us have ultimate license, so even once the con is over or before it, you get to play for free. More and more users are buying that license, and it's usually clear on the forums that they have that license. So yeah, come check us out. Can try out FGCon, or great games, good times, any time of day and night. We got games from Australia, Germany, Sweden, Pacific Time US, Eastern Time, the UK, all over the world. So wherever you are, there surely is a game for you that fits your schedule. And then if you have any questions after this, or would like to join one of our games, just give me a shout. Just ping me on G Plus, and I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Well, I do once again want to say thank you so much for taking the time to help us all out with that. And
You're
thank you,
welcome.
everyone who took the time to watch the broadcast. I hope that what we presented here was very helpful. You have a great evening.